Welcome to Guyana 411. This week we take a look at the weather pattern currently affecting Guyana, which is known as El Nino, and its effects on the country. Stay tuned for more. Ghana is currently experiencing El Nino conditions. We take a look at this weather system and its implications for the country and interventions being made. El Nino means Christ child in Spanish. The El Nino phenomenon was first recognized by fishermen off the coast of South America in the 1600s with the appearance of unusually warm water in the Pacific Ocean. The name was chosen based on the time of year, which is around December, during which these warm water events tended to occur.
El Nino is a coupled oceanic atmospheric phenomenon that manifests itself by the above normal warming of the sea surface temperature in the equatorial Pacific. And the atmospheric component is the low level winds, they become generally westerly, and the upper level winds easterly. In addition, there's also a decrease in precipitation over the western Pacific, that'll be in the region of Indonesia, and an increase in precipitation in the central and eastern Pacific region. Now, this in itself disrupts the entire global circulation, and as a result, the entire globe would experience some form of change in its weather.
For Guyana and the Eastern Caribbean, the weather pattern has disrupted the usually wet and dry seasons.
Georgetown, in the month of December, the normal is to have in excess of 300 millimeters of rainfall. But for December last, Georgetown struggled to reach 100. So for Georgetown alone, it was less than about a third of the rainfall that we're supposed to be having. And this just in Georgetown. But that was replicated in all of the other regions and all of the other stations that we have. Many of the stations were significantly below their long-term average.
The meteorological officer explained that according to research by international partners, the El Nino weather pattern has peaked in November last year. El Nino's effect on Guyana is expected to be neutralized by July of this year.
Hardest hit would be southern Guyana, regions 9, southern region 6, region 8. Because to begin with, those areas only have one rainy season per year. Unlike the coast that we have 2 rainy seasons, we have the May, June, and then the end of year rainfalls, they only have one. That is just about April. It begins in April. Begins in April and runs till July. So they have been having this sort of situation, reduction in rainfall for at least a year now. So they're in a dire situation.
Looking ahead, Al said that the dry weather conditions are expected to prevail. These dry conditions will be exaggerated by the presence of atmospheric dust. The National Meteorological Office is monitoring the weather system and providing real-time updates to Guyanese as events unfold. Water is essential to life, making its total economic value immeasurable. In this next feature, we take a look at some of the ways in which we can preserve this amenity. Apart from drinking it to survive, people use water for many other things. These include cooking, bathing, brushing your teeth, washing clothes, dishes, household cleaning, watering the garden, washing vehicles, and even bathing our pets. Water generally gets into our homes in one of either two ways. It's either delivered by the Guyana Water Incorporated Company or people supply their own water. Guyana is currently experiencing a prolonged dry season, and the demand for an adequate water supply has been drastically increased.
We know that the citizens of Georgetown require water at different times of the day, at certain levels. So we want to ensure that our groundwater sources and the surface level sources will be able to supply adequate amounts of water. The peak periods that we have are between 5 and 9 and between 11:30 and 12:30 and between 4 and 8 p.m. Those are the peak periods when the demand is very high. At this point in time, we want to ensure that the pressures at the peak periods will be maintained and be between 15 and 20 psi, which seeks to ensure that you will have adequate amounts of water at certain levels in your homes for you to carry out your activities during the peak periods.
The GWI is now monitoring the distribution of water in and around Georgetown. This means that the water supply will continue, but persons will experience a reduction in pressure. However, water conservation is the most cost-effective and environmentally sound way to reduce the demand. Therefore, the GWI is advising citizens, especially around Georgetown, to conserve on the use of water. Here are some tips to conserve water in your homes. Turn off the tap when you brush your teeth. Take a shorter shower. Always use full loads in your washing machines, as this cuts out unnecessary washes in between. Install a container to your drain pipe and use the water collected to water your plants, clean your car, and wash your windows. Water your garden with a watering can rather than a hose pipe. If taking a shower, don't waste cold water whilst waiting for hot water to reach the shower head. Catch that water in a container to use on your outside plants or to flush your toilet. If you wash dishes by hand, don't leave the water running for rinsing. Don't defrost frozen foods with running water. Either plan ahead by placing these in the refrigerator overnight or defrost them using the microwave. Don't let the outlet run whilst you clean vegetables, as you can rinse them in a filled sink or pan. Persons are also advised to reduce the amount of time they wash their vehicles and to avoid washing concrete surfaces with the water provided by GWI.
In terms of the overhead tanks, to install some valves which can control the overflow from many of the overhead tanks. There is significant loss of water from many of the overhead tanks due to the lack of inflow valves, and so we are asking residents to try to ensure that these are addressed with some immediacy to prevent the water loss. This means, therefore, that this call is not only for Georgetown. I think some time ago we had addressed this issue of national water loss, the non-revenue water loss from base of the production, and we are therefore asking residents also to inform us as soon as they observe leaks within the system or breakages within the system, because all of these things contribute to the loss of water and impacts on the supply of water to residents. So I think with what we are doing, together with the prudent measures which we will hope, and I see no reason why residents would not at this point have an understanding of the responsibilities they have.
The water company has intensified the monitoring of all distribution networks for leaks and breakages. In addition, the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, the NDIA, is also closely monitoring the situation and is in the process of bringing relief to affected communities. Efforts are being made to cushion the effect on current cultivation, whilst farmers who haven't started planting are being asked to hold off until the situation changes. We now look at the interventions being made by the Ministry of Agriculture.
The Ministry of Agriculture has been working in collaboration with all the relevant stakeholders to implement measures to alleviate the effects of the dry weather conditions.
The Ministry of Agriculture has advised all rice farmers particularly, don't plant rice now. If you haven't planted already, don't plant, because you probably wouldn't get water for the rice to grow properly. And we're trying to have enough water to save the crop that's already planted. Okay? So, what has been planted varies from region to region. I think region 2 has over 60% planted. Region 3, I don't think has a big problem. They might get through with what they're supposed to do. Region 4 is not a big planter of rice. Region 5 is about 90%. Region 6 is around that same thing. But we don't want that extra 10% to be planted at this point in time because there's no water.
The ministry has since issued an El Nino watch after taking into consideration predictions by various regional and international forecasting and weather agencies.
The fact I'm more concerned about is why the major rains are late. They say come mid-May or towards the end of May. It never fails. I mean, major rains have never failed in Guyana. So if it comes later, then you can expect the ramifications on the harvesting later on in the year or the production later on in the year.
The forged collaboration to deal with the issues and bring relief to the affected communities and residents will see ministers of the government along with technical staff and experts visiting affected areas and engaging Guyanese. This has already begun as Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs Sidney Allicock reported that his ministry is in the process of securing funds for intervention in the hinterland regions.
We are working hard to put things in place, and this is with all the ministries, not only our ministry, because we have health issues because of the drought, we have farming issues because of the drought, and of course everyday life, and it is serious, but we are not. We have plans to try to cope with the situation. To understand that water is life, the drought is serious, so we have to conserve and try to, if there happens to be any rain, try to capture the rainwater.
The Ministry of Agriculture has established the special task force to monitor the El Nino situation and plan actions aimed at reducing any further adverse impact it may have on agriculture and agricultural production.
Irrigation is a critical aspect that needs to be addressed during an El Nino season. The Ministry of Agriculture's National Drainage and Irrigation Authority is working to bring relief to farmers in light of the current situation.
In light of the El Nino situation, the Drainage and Irrigation Authority's primary focus is on delivering water to farmers in the affected regions. In Region 2, the Dawa Pump Station is operating 20 hours per day, pumping water from a tributary of the Pomeroon River into the Tapokuma Water Conservancy. In Region 3, water is being pumped from the Warramina Creek into the Burasiri Water Conservancy.
Currently, our East Demerara Conservancy, I'm really channeling this towards the Georgetown population, which is approximately 250,000 people. That's 1/3 of the nation's population. We are pumping, I mean, the level of the conservancy is below what you call dead storage level. At that level, water can't come out by gravity into any canal. So what we're doing is pumping water from the Maduni into the conservancy to try and raise conservancy levels. But that isn't working as well as you would like. So we have to pump from the conservancy into the Lama. It can't come by normal gravity. And the Lama is what feeds Georgetown through the shelter belt. So you understand where we are. It isn't going to get better. It can only get worse over the next few months. So we have to take the situation very seriously.
In Region 5, the Pineground Pump was repositioned to provide irrigation for 2,000 acres of land, which comprises 500 acres of rice. The pump from Sussex Street to Kalisarabo Creek is being relocated to assist with irrigation for rice and cash crop farmers in Mahaika and Maikoni. Excavation works are being done at Broom Hall, Mahaika, so that farmers can have better access to water. The Kalisarabo Creek is being excavated to bring water to Perth Baibu Canal to assist with irrigation for rice and the cash crop farmers. Additionally, water is being pumped at Mora Point from Maikoni River into farmlands. In Region 6, pumps were moved from Eversham and deployed to Sandaka and the Link Canal to assist the Crabwood Creek area. Colonel Retired Shabilal Ramswarup, Director General of the Civil Defense Commission, when asked to rate the current situation out of 10, this is what he had to say.
At this point, I would say 8. Yeah, because the forecasters are saying we do not anticipate rains until, as Minister said, end of March or April. And presently, all the conservancies in Guyana is below full supply level. We cannot have natural flow of water from the conservancy into the farms. It has to be pumped.
25 450-gallon water tanks with 12 pumps were issued to Region 9 to serve communities which have been hard hit by the dry spell. Water is being pumped from the nearest river sources, then trucked into communities where water purification tablets are applied before consumption. With the prediction of heavy rainfall until March month end, consumers countrywide are being urged to conserve water.
According to research, there is good evidence that El Nino is related to increased risk of certain diseases in specific geographical areas where there are climatic anomalies. The Ministry of Public Health, therefore, has some advice for citizens during this El Nino period.
Water is essential to life. As such, the Ministry of Public Health is urging citizens to conserve water by turning off all taps and store water in drums and barrels. Individuals are also encouraged to adopt healthy habits such as purifying all drinking water by adding bleach or by boiling.
The fact that the El Nino has now been going on for more than 8 weeks, the level of water in the creeks and in the creeks particularly is much lower than before, and the flow of these creeks are not as rapid as it would normally be, so you have more stagnation, and as a result of that you find that drinking water has become a problem, especially from shallow wells, from pools, and from the creeks that the villagers in the hinterland would normally use. The campaign of insisting that patients do boil the water, or they use bleach or the tablets, and they guard against gastroenteritis.
In situations where there is a shortage of water, and or in areas where water is sought from streams and canals for household use, individuals are asked to ensure the water is flowing and fresh. Purification is still needed.
That has brought us to the end of Ghana 411 for this week. Check out our other programs on our website. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching.